Hi everybody, welcome to the EagleView demo. My name is Justin, Senior Product Manager here for energy related products. So we're going to be talking about SunSite and our newest offering today, SunSite Complete. So first off, who is EagleView? So EagleView does high resolution aerial imagery. So we own a fleet of planes, our own optics. We're out there capturing super high resolution imagery for huge swaths of the United States. Currently, we have about 98% of the United States covered in terms of populated areas. So unfortunately, not too many pictures of Yosemite, but we've got some great pictures of the buildings that you're interested in. What we do then with that process, we capture that data, extract information from it, and then we use that to create new products. So while we do sell imagery, there's actually a lot of other interesting things that we do, and we're going to be talking about that today. A little bit of history, we've been around for about 17 or 18 years now. We've extensive leadership in the roofing industry, property insurance, bringing that to bear in solar. And one of the ways that I think to talk about it is at the end of the day, our goal is to use this imagery to make sure that you don't have to do site visits. We're kind of the original no site visit company. We'll talk about how that's helpful for solar specifically. So right now we're sort of split up into four main verticals at the moment. We have a series of products for government, for the property insurance, for roofing, and now for energy. There's a lot of other things that come into that energy product line, some tree risk, et cetera. We have a couple sales guys around if you're interested to learn about our other energy products. But today we're going to talk about SunSite and SunSite Complete. So here's a little bit of information to give you kind of a sense of the scale of what EagleView is doing, since we're a little bit newer in the solar space. So currently our coverage, our image coverage, is 98% of the populated United States. So that's buildings, roads, etc. We have a significant number of images that we've taken, and in terms of scale, we're delivering somewhere between 20 and 30,000 reports a day. So these are for roofing companies, solar companies, etc. Hurricane Florence this past week, that number may have eked up a little bit. It's been a very busy week for us, but we're very excited. And our database right now is over 400 million images deep. So there's really a depth of image and history that we can use there. Here's a picture of one of our planes with the camera rig attached. And here's to give you a sense of how we've progressed over the years. So this image is of the exact same cul-de-sac, taken back in 2001 with our first capture platform, and progressing continuously up until 2018, where we actually have moved to some really new imagery that we're very excited about that has potentially sub 1 inch resolution, which opens up a whole new world of the kind of data that you can get from the images. So what do we do for solar specifically? So today our main solar product is called SunSite. So what we do for SunSite is, if you think about it again, we want to avoid those site visits. One of the biggest costs right now for site visits is for a solar installer to go out and measure a roof. So you climb up on a roof, it's dangerous, it's potentially windy, you can't necessarily get up there, and you have to measure it by hand, go back to your site, enter that information in manually. There's a lot of potential complications there, and it ends up being really expensive. So what we actually do is we use our imagery to generate a three-dimensional model of that building. So rather than having to guess or do any user input, we actually create a series of files that give you the data of the pitch, the azimuth, line definitions, so you know if a line on the roof is a hip or a soffit or a valley. We give you the area of each facet, a whole lot of data that you can use to actually plan out your solar system. We give you a PDF report that outlays that, but we also make that data available in several electronic formats. So there is a DXF file, you can import directly into AutoCAD. Our goal is we don't care what design tool you're using, we want to make sure that our data is available for you to use in that tool. And so this saves customers a lot of time, a lot of money in terms of drawing those roof pieces. And here is a tiny, simple little home, obviously the one we picked for our demo, that actually shows you how when we go ahead and we do these line lengths, we're actually identifying the length of each one of those and telling you the type of roof. Now for a roofer or a solar installer, it's really important to know the difference between a hip or a valley. All that data just comes to you automatically through our SunSite report. And then from that, we generate the 3D file. So this is the kind of information that you'd be importing into your design tool. So think of it as your workflow. You go out to the site, you get the customer that you're interested in, you call us, order the report, and that information comes directly to you, import it into your design tool, and you continue onwards. no site visit needed. No redesigning your solar system because you got the measurement right the first time. So there's a lot of benefits to it. So looking at solar, the SunSite report has been out for a couple years now. It's been super useful. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback here at SPI about it. But one of the big questions that comes up is shading analysis. So you can tell you what your roof looks like, and that's great, but if there's a tree in front of it from a solar perspective, it doesn't really work so well. But it's hard to know that information. So we're rolling out today our newest product called SunSite Complete. And what SunSite Complete does is it takes that same high-res imagery that we use to generate that three-dimensional roof model, and we actually start to map out all the different obstructions that are happening around your roof. So the tree, if that tree is a little bit crooked shaped, we're capturing that. We're capturing the actual shape of that. Buildings that are nearby, topography, etc. And what it allows us to do is go ahead and generate this type of heat map information. So if you're familiar with shading, solar shading, at the end of the day, the value you really want to know is for this particular pitch and orientation and shade, how much solar energy is there actually available at this spot? How much energy can I generate with it? And that's referred to as the total solar resource fraction, TSRF. So what we do is we create objective, consistent results of that TSRF factor, and just standardize it across any building, any territory in the United States. It's just done. We standardize shade. So this is that same image that we were looking at, which is an actual home here in California. And we've zoomed down in a little bit now to see each of these individual facets. Now, on a normal shading analysis, you might be able to capture a couple different points. But what we've actually done is generate a shade analysis for every couple of inches across this entire roof at a 15-minute granularity for an entire year. And what it allows you to do now is see, in a lower res image, this facet V right here may have looked like a perfect solar facet. You're just going to load it up. But you get out there and you realize there's obstructions, there's shading. All of a sudden you can't put as many panels on as you thought. Customer's not happy. What we've been able to do is capture those obstructions here, and then actually, because we're capturing the height and shape of those, show you exactly where that shade is going to fall. For reference purposes, the grid on here is about a foot square. So just to give you some context. So that means you can actually go and say, I know I can go all the way up to the ridge line, and I can follow this line right here and actually lay out specifically where I want each module to go, based on the exact shading analysis that I'm comfortable with. You can even see, this facet over here, this facet over here, etc. Generally, lighter, more yellow is good, more sun. So now, again, we're showing you a PDF because we generate all this data electronically, and as energetic as I try to be, showing you a CSV report, not particularly interesting. So we have it here on the PDF. But what it's doing is it's generating all this facet level information and then rolling up these values monthly. So for example, if you're in New York and you're reporting these values to NYSERDA, this is the exact format that you're going to need to report those values to. Now, typically, a lot of times shading analysis is done using a tool like a SunEye, which is that fisheye lens that you place on the roof facet. And what we found is that customers really wanted to be able to understand, okay, there may be shade here, but I want to see what's causing it. If it's a tree, I want to know that because I want to be able to account for its future growth. Whereas a building, I don't care. So we've actually generated these fisheye lenses that are looking out from these different points on the roof. Again, this is just derived from our imagery. We didn't actually have to send anybody up to the roof. There's been no one who's visited this house. So you can see here, this is part of that roof facet. This is part of the obstructions on the roof, whereas this is the roof plane right here. So it allows you to very clearly figure out all those different details and do that specific design. So one of the questions that we get often is, how does this work? So we start with our core EagleView product of that new roof report. We generate that three-dimensional model of that roof report right here. We then go ahead and, using that same process, identify the different obstructions around that building. We track the path of the sun over that through a calculation and allow us to generate that very specific detailed heat map of all your different shading values. So Now this in itself is interesting. We've avoided the need for you to do a site visit for measurement, and we avoided the need for you to do a shade analysis. But what's interesting is we start to look at the greater than the sum of its part. What are the workflows efficiencies that you can start to gain from this process? So one, if you're going to do an accurate project proposal, you know going in, we've removed a lot of the questions. The measurements aren't a question anymore. The shading isn't a question anymore. You can check that off your list from the get-go. You don't have to worry about missing different pieces. And it gives you the ability to do a more quick and accurate system design level at the module level. And then what really comes in handy if you have a production guarantee or your financing is based on specific production information, you can actually do a production calculation at a module level because you have shading at a module level. So it makes it much more likely for your financing partners to be able to accept the results you're going with. So there is no one specific solar workflow. It's a pretty varied industry, but often what we see is something kind of like this. You get a customer who starts out as a lead, they go to a proposal, you get a site assessment, the solar design team figures out their design, you get a contract. After the contract, you get a final design, probably another site visit. You go to approval for the financing, they may want to go back and check some of your design, and then you end up at your system installation. So this is generally, I'm seeing some smiles in the crowd. This is people have experienced this type of workflow before. What we're really excited about is the opportunities that by removing those questions of measurement and shading, there's a whole new workflow process that we're starting to see customers adopt. So from lead stage, you purchase an EagleView report, and that means that you get that SunSite Complete, you know your complete shading and your complete measurements before you even go out to the site. You show up to the house with a final solar design. You don't have to redesign it based on shading, you don't have to redesign it based on that vent that you missed. And you're actually able to get a much higher customer conversion rate and final contract at that first visit. Now, if you go ahead and you capture some images of the electrical panel and maybe get some images inside the rafters, you now have all the information that you need, and we actually don't necessarily have to go back to the site until the day of installation. So it's not just that we're sliding in and replacing one or two of these pieces, but we allow a whole streamlined workflow. What's also exciting, from a customer's perspective, this is day one in a normal workflow. With a new workflow, they almost start kind of halfway through the process. So the customer time in process feels like half of what it normally would be. And that's what gets me really excited. So talking about SunSite Complete, we've got the detailed roof measurements that we've been doing with SunSite today. We've been doing for the roofing industry for about 10 years. We've got the complete shading analysis that's completely automatic, it's objective, your financiers can trust it because it's going to be the same every time coming from EagleView. We have the opportunities for new workflow possibilities and the higher conversion rates and the lower costs that those allow. And as a solar installer, it allows you to think about what's your key differentiator. We've been at SBI for a day now, and no one that I've asked this question to has told me that their shading analysis, their ability to wield a fisheye camera on a roof is the single distinguisher that makes them sell more solar. For a solar installer, it's the relationships, it's making the customer feel happy and feel secure. So we handle a lot of those details that are our key strength and allow you to do what's really your strength, is that relationship. You can reduce customers dropping out of the process, which is a huge issue for the solar industry. You can speed up your financing because your financiers now have come to trust the measurements and the shading analysis are just done. They're just right. You don't have to worry about it. And at the end of the day, it's everyone's goal here at SBI, close more deals. So that is, in a nutshell, SunSite Complete.